The Gambia health experts have confirmed the first case of the Indian COVID-19 variant. Ghana has been chosen by the European Union as Africa's coronavirus vaccine manufacturing hub. And EU leaders and Japan have expressed commitment in defeating COVID-19 and supporting a sustainable recovery process. These and more coming on The World Today. Stay tuned. Good evening, viewers. You're watching The World Today newscast here on Africa TV. I am Sohna Tunka, and now to our news in detail. The Ministry of Health has confirmed the detection of first cases of the so-called Indian COVID-19 variant in 2 people who traveled into the country on 18 April. The 2 individuals are said to have tested negative when they initially arrived, but tested positive 2 weeks later. The ICC has more of that in this report.
As part of efforts to combat spread of the coronavirus in the Gambia, the Health Ministry continues to monitor all new coronavirus variants from UK, South Africa and as well as India. Reports from the United Kingdom shows that the variant is more transmissible than the current virus. The 2 travelers arrived from India and were immediately tested but were found negative for the new variant. The ministry therefore reminds the public that it's strengthening its pandemic response.
The general public is therefore notified of the updates on our testing and quarantine protocol. Henceforward, all travelers from India must arrive in the Gambia with a negative PCR test valid for 72 hours. All travelers will be quarantined for a maximum of 72 hours at their own cost to enable sample collection and PCR testing.
To prevent the citizens from contracting the virus and avert its spread, the Gambia's Health Ministry has set up surveillance system which has detected 2 travelers who arrived in the Gambia on 18th April 2021.
The 2 travelers were tested with rapid diagnostic tests at the airport upon arrival and both tested negative. As per the Ministry of Health protocol, travelers with rapid diagnostic test negative results at the airport are allowed to self-isolate at home.
The 14-day self-isolation is necessary in COVID-19 protocols to monitor those with symptoms so as to prevent others around you from contracting the virus, the Health Minister said. Of recent, the pandemic has taken its toll across the world, affecting lives and livelihoods of the people, and the Gambia is not an exception. Despite the record in new cases, the Gambia government has lifted many COVID-19 related restrictions, including opening of businesses, markets and loose social distancing measures. Currently, the Gambia has registered 5,978 confirmed cases, 5,754 recoveries and 178 deaths. Karietu Seka, iAfrica News.
Now, on the celebration of Africa Day, Honorable Sidia Jatta has lamented the struggles Africa is going through, saying Africa is yet to earn self-liberation. The top Gambian politician made the remarks at the Pan-African Parliament in Madrid, South Africa. According to Jatta, Africa is not liberated as they speak the language of their colonial masters. Details of that in this report.
Economic development and integration of the African continent was as a result of setting up the Pan-African Parliament to ensure the full participation of African people. The Parliament, which sits in Midrand, South Africa, is a platform for people from all African states to be involved in the discussions and decision-making on the problems and challenges facing the continent. The 4th ordinary session of the 5th Parliament is underway in South Africa, where members of different African countries are debating on the problems and challenges faced by Africa. Taking his turn to address the parliamentarians on Africa Day, Sidia Jatta, Gambian representative at the PAP, outlined the struggles Africa is facing to see itself in everything concerning Africa.
It means that we still have to struggle to come together. We still have to struggle to understand each other. We still have to struggle to share our values, to see ourselves in everything African, whether it is in Zimbabwe, whether it's in the Gambia, whether it's in Senegal, whether it's in any South Africa. Anything African is our property.
Honorable Jatta is with the belief that Africa is still not liberated, as Africans are still speaking the languages of their colonial countries.
So this struggle that still remains, for me, the final phase of Africa's struggle is still to be fought. That is, we have to be liberated. We are not. Do you know why we are not liberated? In what language am I speaking to you? These are the languages that were used to colonize us. These are the languages that were used to tell us that we had no languages. European philosophers have philosophized on the fact that we Africans don't have languages. We have bubbles. They call them bubbles.
Mr. Jatta said it is agreed by many that human life started in Africa.
If we agree, and that is agreed by all scientists, whether you are an archaeologist, whatever you are, it is agreed that human life started in Africa. So it means that everything human started in Africa. And it is also true that the revered European philosophers and mathematicians had their last lessons in those disciplines in Africa, in Egypt. And the question I ask, why is it that they decided to burn the greatest library in the whole world in Egypt? Because that was the storehouse of human knowledge.
CDI Jatta urged Africans to work together to make sure what belongs to Africa comes back to Africa. Joining Mr. Jatta on the debate, other parliamentarians also set their side of the story on Africa's problems and their challenges. The PAP members are designated by the legislatures of their member states and members of their domestic legislatures rather than being elected directly by the people. Meanwhile, 100 new delegates from the different countries were sworn in as members of the Pan-African Parliament during the opening ceremony of the 4th ordinary session of the 5th Parliament. For iAfrican News, Sohna Tunkara.
From matters of the Pan-African Parliament, where the struggles of Africa have been discussed, we move to the European Union, where it has chosen Ghana to be the manufacturing hub for coronavirus vaccine in Africa, after it has started producing its own local vaccines. Earlier this year, the Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo said he was determined to see Ghana manufacture her own vaccines. And already, the government has selected 3 companies in Ghana that will work with the European partners in the production of the vaccine. The West African country was relying on the Democratic Republic of Congo for its supply of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Details in this report.
The European Union says it chose Ghana as one of the manufacturing hubs of COVID-19 vaccines in Africa because the country has already initiated plans for local production. The government says 3 Ghanaian companies are working to produce the vaccines, and they have already set up their factories. The local manufacturers have yet to get approval to produce the shots, but the government says a team from the European Union and Ghana will soon be meeting to discuss how to implement the project. For now, Ghana is racing against time to inoculate at least 20 million out of its 30 million population against COVID-19 by the end of the year. The country has had to rely on the supply of AstraZeneca vaccines from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which were nearly expiring, to administer the second shots to people who had already taken the first jabs. This was after the supply of vaccines under the WHO-backed COVAX vaccine sharing initiative was delayed by a slump in production and supply from India. If successful, the government says the European Investment Bank may fund the production of COVID-19 vaccines in Ghana.
The Gambia Tobacco Industry Mapping Report appears to show that there are limited financial resources to support tobacco control activities and programs in the Gambia, citing that most of the support are from development partners, including WHO, RAID, among others. The survey was conducted to acquire first-hand information on tobacco industry and its interference strategies and tactics in the Gambia. Daisy tells us more.
Despite the harmful effects attached to tobacco use, the consumption of the product remains a challenge in the Gambia, especially among the youthful population. Although the Tobacco Act 2016 prohibits sales of single stick of cigarette and other tobacco products less than 100 grams, the country's tobacco industry uses different forms to market their products, including the sale of single sticks. According to the survey, these tactics have undermined efforts to control the use of tobacco in the Gambia, especially in public places. The Director of Health Promotion and Education, Mamadou Njai, said the survey will help in circulating information among the public to raise awareness on the dangers of tobacco use before any action is taken.
Will be circulated, and we'll also try to make sure that we use it in our radio programs and if possible, whatever sensitization program we are doing, so that those people who are doing a lot of activities thinking that we don't know what they are doing, but at least for us to remind them that whatever you are doing in trying to cover up yourself or your organization or your industry, we are aware and we are reminding you before the law comes, before we start applying the law.
Omar Baji, the national focal point for tobacco control, said in order to make Gambia tobacco-free, the public has a role to play in making sure those found smoking in public places face the law.
But we have to do our best. We have to do our best. People are doing it. Whoever smokes in your presence, tell the person that this is against the law. And if the person refuses, kindly take the person, not to fight with the person, not to do any violent attack with the person, but to report the person to the nearest police station. This will help.
According to reports, tobacco use is the leading cause of preventable deaths in the world, which has caused great burden in low and middle income countries. The 2019-2020 demographic health survey conducted by GBOS appeared to show 17% of households smoke tobacco daily. However, the Tobacco Control Committee said to avoid the use of tobacco in public places, all provisions of Tobacco Act 2016 and Regulation 2019 should be strengthened and enforced in the Gambia. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am DCC.
The inappropriate effects of the pandemic on women remain a challenge that will likely have long-term consequences. The pandemic has adversely affected the economic gain of women across the world, more especially in the Gambia, as their source of incomes has deteriorated by the pandemic. DCC again.
The continued backlash on human development by the coronavirus global pandemic is also emphasized on gender lines. Gender inequalities was exposed as women received a large share of the extra childcare work, following the closure of schools in one aspect. A whole list including loss of jobs and market shares due to governing regulations to control the spread of COVID-19 did not leave women on the go. Fatimata Makalo, a vendor at the Serekunda market, explained the closure of businesses at the peak of the pandemic as a drastic setback on her income.
The pandemic has affected me a lot. Everything started at a time when we were asked to close our shops at 1 o'clock. Whether you make sales or not, you are forced to pack and leave. Selling is where I get my earnings to feed my family.
The scenario of helplessness on the side of women because of the COVID-19 pandemic is what gender activist Jama Jack referred to as a classic gender inequality in the Gambia.
There hasn't been equality in the Gambia. We can't even begin to talk about equity anyway in the Gambia from a gender perspective, from a class perspective, But then what COVID has done is just show us that this is actually real, and even worse, it has widened the gap.
She noted how the lockdown periods and closure of businesses impacted women who are reliant on market hours to provide for their families' food and every other basic need.
Because those who were already struggling to survive every day were the ones that were probably more deeply impacted by the lockdown measures or the public health regulations. Because if, for example, you look at market women who wake up every morning to go sell their produce to make money that they now use to take care of their families, and you tell them the market is opening from this time to that time, you're already restricting how much they're able to make in a day, and that affects how much income they're able to go home with and take care of their needs.
The Gambian National Gender Policy of 2010-2020 showed that disparities still exist between men and women in power sharing, participation and control over decision making, mainly due to traditional and cultural forces. A Commonwealth report in September 2020 recommended amendments of laws that discriminate against women to pave the way for equal rights in the West African nation. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
From the report by Daisy, we will go with a short commercial break and the news continues. Stay tuned.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back, and now to the rest of our stories. The leaders of the European Union and Japan have expressed their commitment in defeating the COVID-19 pandemic and supporting a sustainable recovery. The new strategic partnership agreement is the first ever bilateral framework agreement between the EU and Japan, and the agreement sets out a framework of enhanced political and sectoral cooperation, as well as joint actions on issues of common interest, including on regional and global challenges. Here's the latest.
Countries around the world have been facing economic challenges since the advent of the novel coronavirus, with leaders from across the world devising means of tackling its effect on the lives of the people. In a joint statement during the virtual EU-Japan summit on Thursday, the leaders said that defeating COVID-19 remains the highest priority. They also dispelled insinuation that the vaccination process is actually a race among countries, but rather a race against time. Recognizing extensive immunization as a global public good, the EU and Japan Convergence pledged support for universal, equitable and affordable access to safe, effective and quality-assured COVID-19 vaccines, diagnostics and treatments. To this end, their substantial contributions in creating access to COVID-19 tools accelerator and its COVAX facility was used as an example. Stakeholders are also making efforts to expand production of vaccines and other COVID-19 health products across the world. Speaking after the EU-Japan summit via video conference, the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, said, EU, as the largest exporter of vaccines, including Japan, are firmly committed to COVAX.
Prime Minister Suga will host the COVAX Pledging Summit next week, and we hope these efforts will help secure sufficient resources to vaccinate 30% of the world's population by the end of this year. And the EU plans to share at least 100 million doses of vaccines this year. It is key to keep supply chains open.
They called for prevention of unnecessary export and travel restrictions as work towards restoration of visa waiver as a reciprocal move. For iAfrica News, I am Julden Yaisware.
The fight against COVID-19 continues as EU and Japan vibrates the campaign. Now, in a bid to strengthen the South Sudanese pound and stabilize the economy, The country's central bank has increased the amount of foreign currency it injects into the economy to $8 million, up from the previous $5 million every week. The country has made gains against the dollar as a result of the weekly auctioning of the dollars to commercial banks and forex exchange bureaus. But despite the progress, the prices of basic commodities remain high in markets across the country in recent weeks. Here is more of that in this report.
The Bank of South Sudan says commercial banks in the country will receive $5 million and forex bureaus $3 million weekly. The bank says it hopes the hard currency it is providing will remove excess local currency in the market and reduce inflation.
Our attempt really to stabilize the exchange rate is indirectly should contribute to the stability of prices.
The local currency has recently gained strength against the US dollars. However, many Juba residents say they are not feeling its impact.
The dollar is now coming down, but there is no way we can have to see things at the same price down of last time. Because normally if you go to the market, now we just know that the dollar is now reaching the level where people now can get something good, but there is no way. If I don't know if I go to market, I can get this on the price of market. If I don't cooking oil, just the same price down of last time.
One civil society group in South Sudan's capital, Juba, is hailing the provision of the US dollars by the central bank, but it is urging the government to focus on maintaining lasting peace as a solution for the country's ailing economy.
We know that right now investors fear to come to this country because of the nature of the conflict and because of the environment. We need to improve this so that we see some of these industries coming. We see a very serious investment in this country so that we are able to generate some kind of employment.
The Bank of South Sudan obtained $174.2 million in March from the International Monetary Fund.
The bank says it is using part of that funding to try and stabilize prices in the market. Some of it will also be used to settle salary arrears for civil servants.
Authorities have decried the visa and economic restrictions imposed on the government officials and members of security forces by the United States over atrocities tied to the months-long conflict in northern Ethiopia. Thousands of people have died and at least 2 million others displaced since the conflict broke out in Ethiopia's northern region of Tigray last November. More of that in this report.
Ethiopian authorities continue to reflect on the U.S. State Department restrictions aimed at authorities and on finance and security-related issues. First, the foreign ministry here has condemned the move by the U.S. and said it would injure the long-held ties between the two countries. Now, the State Minister of Finance, Eyob Takaling, says nothing can stop Ethiopia from making an important breakthrough.
The U.S. is talking about some security restrictions, financial restrictions, except humanitarian aid. It's their money. So whatever they want to do, they're entitled to it. But would anything stop Ethiopia from transforming, from prospering, from making a breakthrough country in Africa? None.
Eyob said the United States' decision is saddening, but he hopes that things would eventually change for the better. He said Ethiopia can only strengthen itself when faced with such hurdles, and it will never change its stance.
The country is on the brink of meaningful transformation. We're moving forward. We'll make it. If there are some challenges on the way, as I said, I'm not aware of it, and I'm not even paying attention to it. Probably unfortunate to those who are here, but I'm not too much interested into it.
The United States maintains that Ethiopia has done little to address the humanitarian and human rights related issues in its northern territory. Addis Ababa, on the other hand, remains firm that it's doing its level best to accommodate its citizens, from the provision of protection for the vulnerable to bringing perpetrators to justice and delivering aid to the most affected.
We have for you on the world today, but you can catch up with Mariama Cham on Gambia 24 at 19:30 GMT for more national stories here on Africa TV. Thanks for watching and bye for now.